October 22nd, 1951. The Nevada desert stretched endlessly under a pale morning sky, silent except for the wind cutting across the sagebrush. In the distance, Camp Desert Rock had appeared almost overnight, a sprawling military installation of thousands of tents, supply depots, and barracks built for a single, terrifying purpose. Nearly 6,500 American soldiers had been ordered to this remote corner of Nevada, 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas, for what the Pentagon called realistic training in atomic warfare. Most were young men, many still teenagers, who had never seen combat. They had been told they were part of a historic mission. What they weren't told was that they were about to become human test subjects in one of the most controversial military experiments in American history. The orders came from the highest levels of the U.S. military command. After the Soviet Union detonated its first atomic bomb in August 1949, shattering America's nuclear monopoly, the Pentagon faced a terrifying new reality. A future war with the Soviets would not be fought with conventional weapons alone. It would be a nuclear conflict. Military strategists envisioned battlefields contaminated with radiation, where soldiers would have to advance through mushroom clouds and radioactive fallout to seize objectives. But this was all theory. No American soldier had ever trained for combat in a nuclear environment. No general knew how troops would react when ordered to march toward an atomic explosion. Operation Buster Jangle was launched as a joint program between the Department of Defense and the Atomic Energy Commission. 7 nuclear weapons would be detonated at the Nevada Proving Ground between October and November 1951. 3 of these explosions, codenamed Dog, Sugar, and Uncle, would be accompanied by military exercises designated Desert Rock 1, Seco, and 3. The soldiers arriving at Camp Desert Rock came from elite units. The Core Maneuver Force consisted of troops from the 11th Airborne Division. Approximately 3,500 support troops from the 6th Army's 3 Corps were assigned to construct and staff the camp itself. On the morning of November 1st, 1951, nearly 2,800 soldiers crouched in hastily dug foxholes and trenches 6 miles south of Ground Zero in Area 7 of Yucca Flat. In the pre-dawn darkness, they had been trucked from Camp Desert Rock to their assigned positions. The men wore standard combat uniforms. No special protective gear, no radiation suits, nothing beyond their regular fatigues and helmets. Some had been issued small film-badge dosimeters to measure radiation exposure. Many of these badges would later be lost, damaged, or simply discarded. Training films assured them that radiation was the least important effect of a nuclear weapon, fatal only within a mile of detonation. The bomb-designated Shot Dog fell from 1,417 feet and detonated with the force of 21 kilotons, more powerful than the weapons used on Japan. The flash came first, a light brighter than 1,000 suns that turned night into day in an instant. Soldiers were ordered to cover their eyes with their arms, but even through closed eyelids and forearms, many could see the bones in their own hands, silhouetted against the brilliant white light. Then came the heat, a searing wave that felt like opening an oven door, except this oven stretched for miles. The shockwave followed seconds later, a physical wall of compressed air that slammed into the trenches with enough force to knock men off their feet. And then they saw it. The mushroom cloud rising into the desert sky, boiling upward in shades of orange, red, and black, climbing higher and higher until it dominated the entire horizon. Then came the order that would define Desert Rock. Climb out of your foxholes. Form up. Advance toward Ground Zero. Approximately 880 soldiers from the battalion combat team rose from their defensive positions and began to march directly toward the atomic blast site. They moved in tactical formation, rifles ready, as if this were a real combat situation. As they advanced, they passed through the outer zones of destruction. Military equipment placed in predetermined positions had been twisted, melted, and shattered by the blast. At 900 meters from ground zero, roughly half a mile from where the bomb had detonated, they were finally ordered to halt. The heat radiating from the ground was still intense, and somewhere beneath their feet, invisible and insidious, radioactive particles were being kicked up with every footstep, entering their lungs with every breath. What the soldiers didn't know was that they were part of a massive data collection operation. Scientists and military researchers had positioned themselves at observation points, recording everything. The Human Resources Research Office from Johns Hopkins University was tasked with one specific mission: measure the psychological impact of nuclear weapons on American troops. Would soldiers panic? Would they freeze in terror? Researchers distributed questionnaires before and after the exercise. They conducted interviews. Some soldiers were even hooked up to polygraph machines during debriefings. The official reports claimed success. More than 70% of the troops said they would do all right in a nuclear war. The Pentagon declared that American soldiers were psychologically prepared for atomic warfare. But the polygraph data told a different story, revealing more fear than soldiers admitted. Operation Desert Rock didn't end with Shot Dog. Two more exercises followed in November 1951. On November 19th, Shot Sugar became the first surface detonation at the Nevada Proving Ground. On November 29th, Shot Uncle became the first underground nuclear test, detonated 17 feet beneath the surface. The exercises continued for 6 more years. Desert Rock 4 took place in 1952, involving 7,350 soldiers. Desert Rock 5 occurred in 1953, where soldiers advanced to within 3,500 yards of ground zero. In total, nearly 60,000 American servicemen participated in these nuclear war games between 1951 and 1957, exposed to varying levels of radiation that the military assured them was safe. The truth about radiation exposure remained hidden for decades. At the time, scientists already knew that ionizing radiation could cause cancer and genetic damage. But the military operated under the assumption that short-term exposure at distances of several miles posed minimal risk. Radiation exposure limits were frequently exceeded, especially among support personnel. Some Air Force pilots who flew through radioactive clouds received doses exceeding 21 Roentgens. Film badge records for many participants were incomplete, damaged, or simply disappeared. Many soldiers had been exposed to far more radiation than official documents suggested. The atomic veterans began developing health problems in the years that followed. Cancer rates among Desert Rock participants appeared elevated. Leukemia, thyroid cancer, and other radiogenic diseases struck with disturbing frequency. It wasn't until the late 1970s that the scope of the problem became public. In 1979, researchers reported a possible increase in leukemia among military personnel who participated in nuclear testing. Congressional hearings followed. Veterans came forward with stories of illness, disability, and death. One veteran, Joel Healy, who had been a 17-year-old private first class at Camp Desert Rock in 1957, witnessed more than 20 nuclear detonations. Decades later, he described the experience. "If there is a hell on Earth, it's gotta be that. You felt the shockwave of the thing going off and then the heat. I'm 17 years old and I buy into it because I'm thinking, they spent a lot of money training me to be a soldier. They wouldn't intentionally put me in harm's way. They never said a word." In 1990, Congress finally passed the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, offering payments to atomic veterans. But for many, the compensation came too late. The atomic veterans of Desert Rock had been used as human test subjects in the name of national security, their health sacrificed to answer questions about warfare in the nuclear age. Today, Camp Desert Rock is abandoned. All that remains are rock-lined tent platforms, concrete foundations, and the ghosts of thousands of young men who stood in the Nevada desert and watched the world end 6 miles away.